Hi everyone, this is Joy, and I am here again for day 4 of the Cosmic Awakening Manifestation and Healing through the Chakras. And today is a special one that a lot of us have been really looking forward to. Today is when we pay attention and give love and support and openness to our throat chakra. What does your throat chakra entail? Well, throat chakra concentrates the most on communication. When our throat chakras are out of balance, we are either talking too much or not talking enough. We are allowing others to shove their thoughts and their beliefs into our mouths, essentially, down our throats. We are accepting any and everything someone has to say about us as law or say to us. We're just taking things at face value. We aren't really giving enough room to dig on our own to find out how we really feel about these certain things. And one thing I have picked up on, and I don't know because it was brought to my attention, so therefore I was more heightened to it, but I have been talking a lot today. And don't really know why I felt the need to talk a lot today, but I did. And there were a few things that really just grinded my gears. And it felt good to get them out. Because one thing that I would do when it came to communication is I would hold in things that I thought would make other people uncomfortable or make them feel any sort of way about me. Um, and that caused me to be so disconnected in my throat chakra. As we talked about in the previous video about my sacral chakra for me is the one that is the most discombobulated, the most misaligned, because that's the one that is connected with the most trauma for me. So it can be a little difficult to get that one back in tune with everything else. I would say the next one in line for misalignment with me, it would be a toss up between my third eye and my throat chakra. I have a really hard time really saying how I feel about something. And what happened today is I had no real filter today. There were a few things that happened today that I spoke up about and didn't just let it fly. And ironically, the things that I said, I didn't even realize I was saying them until they were already out of my mouth. And they were for my own good. They were allowing myself to put myself back into the conversation and not be relegated to what someone thinks of me or what someone thought I should say or how someone thought I should be, because they're looking at me solely at the surface and going, oh, I can talk to her any old way I want to because of how she looks or how I am perceiving her to be. The quiet, take anything projection that I'm throwing in her direction. Oh, she'll take it. And that person was completely thrown off by me refusing to take what they were trying to get me to swallow. And for those of us that have trouble and are misaligned and unbalanced in our throat chakra, especially those of us that are more on the side of we shut down and we shut up when it's time for us to speak up, that can be a lot, that can be a little more difficult because that comes with doing tuning and work within all other chakras as well. If you're someone that has a whole lot to say at all times about everything, your work is a little bit different. Your work is learning how powerful quiet is, learning how powerful not having to have the last say, not having to be the smartest one in the room, not having to prove something to everyone. That as well is something that it comes along with tuning everything else. But it's two different, well, not really two different. It's two extremes of the same thing. So you have to go at them in the way in which the extreme that you are tackling and dealing with calls for. So for me, because I'm someone that tends to clam up, my throat chakra reacts and I get a sore throat, I get dry mouth, I tend to get pain right here, and it turns into a migraine or a headache because I am suppressing something. I am telling myself that I can't say this. I'm allowing someone to tell me I can't say this. I can't express myself. I can't speak freely, and it's causing harm. And because I'm leaving that conversation, I'm leaving that space in the with the thought that anything I had to add to the conversation is void. It's null. Like there's nothing good that I had to add to that conversation. I didn't even allow myself to find that out for myself because I told myself or allowed myself to be told that whatever I had to say didn't make a difference. So there's a lot that comes with this because this is something because most of us have the ability to speak freely physically. So this is something that comes as naturally as breathing in a lot of ways for most of us. So it could be, this one could be the one that's the most difficult because it's like, oh, this should be the easy one, right? And those are the ones that mess you up, the ones that look simple. So when it comes to cutting the ties of expression, there are two ways to look at this. It's the two sides of the same coin. Like I said, it's two extremes. You have these two extremes of you're not talking enough and you're talking way too much, but they're on the same plane. It's still chakra, it's still throat, and it's still expression and communication that is needing to be worked on. So the pulling of cords for this can sting a little bit because you ever had those moments when you're listening to yourself and you're like, that's what I sound like? That's what cutting these cords can feel like. It can feel very unfamiliar while also being very familiar at the same time. It could be embarrassing. It could be like, ugh, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. It makes me feel weird. And because I have to own up to, I've allowed someone to silence me, or I've allowed myself to be silenced, and I told myself that I can't speak. And cutting that cord comes with ownership. All cutting comes with ownership. And throat chakra can be the most impactful because it's the thing that you express with the most. And it can be really like, man, like I gotta shut up on one hand, I gotta speak up on the other. It's a lot. There are layers to this. So, but the most important thing when it comes to this specifically is deciding which one you're on, which side you're on, which side of that coin is the one that you're having the most trouble with, and cutting the cords associated with that. If you're not speaking up enough, ask yourself why. Try to pinpoint as best as you can why you're feeling like you can't speak up. What has suppressed your expression? What has suppressed your ability to communicate effectively? And if you are on the side of talking too much, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to perform? What are you trying to project? Who are you trying to impress? Who is the person that you want to, who are the people, who are the thought process, what are the thought processes? What are you dealing with that is causing you to feel like I have to let everyone know I'm here? I have to be the biggest one in the room. I have to be the loudest. I have to be the most funniest. I have to be the one that everyone sees. Otherwise, my existence is for naught. And you have to ask yourself why you feel that way. Why is that something that you are allowing yourself to believe? What happened that made you feel like the only way to be noticed is to be the loudest, most obnoxious, the one that has all the answers, the one that has to have the final say and the final word? What happened that caused you to have that thought process and dealing with that thought process. What does it feel like? What does it sound like for you to just be alone and quiet? Not in a punishment, not like in a, you just need to shut up. Not like that, but in a way of like, what does it sound like when I'm quiet? What does it feel like when I'm quiet? Who am I not allowing myself to listen to when I'm quiet? Like you have to ask yourself those questions. Those are tough questions to ask sometimes because you don't want to own up to that. None of us want to own up to that when it's a whether it's a toxic narrative or not. It's our narrative, so we don't want to own up to the thing that makes us feel toxic, and it's hard. It's hard, but in order to cut those cords, especially if it's one where you're starting to feel yourself becoming that laborious person that everybody's like, oh my gosh, here comes so and so, and they're going to be here talking about stuff that does not matter, and you have to ask yourself, are you okay to continue that life, or are you in a space where you're like, you know what, that's not helping me, that's not conducive to where I'm trying to go and what I'm trying to do, and I am ready to like cut some cords and cut some threads with ways of communication and that I've been used to, that I've become accustomed to, and have told myself that this is the only way in which I can communicate. Is no longer effective. It wasn't effective then, but now it's starting to catch up to me, and vice versa. So as we've been working with the last 3 videos, I have my handy dandy and trusty stones and crystals. I work with kyanite specifically to cut cords. Kyanite is amazing for third eye and crown, but it works for all chakras to help cut those energetic threads and cords. I always use my rainbow quartz when I am doing my Reiki sessions, and my mahogany obsidian. I love my mahogany obsidian. Ironically, I left the house without this today because I was so caught up in the fact that I need to get these videos and everything done and showing and doing this work that I have left it in a certain spot in this room, and I went to look for it today and I went, oh, I don't have it. So it was very strange to not have this with me. So yes, we're going to be cutting cords that have to do with our throat chakra, and whatever way in which you need to work with your throat chakra will be available to you. There's no, oh, well, I'm only focusing on people that are having problems with communicating effectively and finding their voice. This is for anyone who is looking to cut any sort of cord with their throat chakra to help make their communication existence in life way better. So with all hearts and minds cleared, I don't know why I keep saying that, but it just feels good to say it. Let's begin. Okay. Reiki guides, today has been the day of speaking. Today has been the day of sharing. Today has been the day of calling forth and speaking forth that which we believe in. So Reiki guides, I ask that you pour into me and allow me to be the conduit in which you wish to use and download this energy. Protect us as we make this journey through healing and cutting all negative and toxic energetic cords that have to do with our throat chakra. You know that the throat chakra can be a little bit tricky. So I ask you to help us and assist us in how we as a collective as well as those who wish to tackle this individually, can best learn to cut cords within our throat chakra so that we are better equipped to communicate more effectively, more peacefully, more intentionally. Reiki guys, I ask that you protect us on this journey. Continue to watch over us as you watch over us. The last few videos, continue to pour into us. Bring us something fresh. Bring us something new. Help us to look at things differently. Help us to speak our truths. How and when we are meant to speak them. So many of us are dealing with anxiety, fear, confusion, worry, right here. As I was breathing through it, that light came from here. That light expressing that some of us are stuck here. We choke up. We don't allow ourselves to share and to be open. And some of us are a little too open. And it's not helping us. It's like we're doing it to make others feel comfortable even though it's hurting us. So one of the ties and cords that I want us to cut are the cords of expectation. How we're supposed to sound. Especially if you are a person of color who has dealt with, oh, you sound white. Oh, you sound this. Oh, you sound that. You're not supposed to sound this way. And we have, because that was something that I grew up hearing, we have allowed that to cause us to not speak our true tones. We have allowed where we come from or how somebody else feels that we should speak dictate who we are to the world. So in cutting those cords, I cut the cords of expectation. I cut the cords of changing our voices to fit what we think other people want to hear, how we think people want to deal with us, how we think people want to accept us. Whether that's an accent, whether that's a dialect, anything that we're allowing to be said to us isn't deep down in our core, is not who we are. And we are trying to push a narrative that isn't true when it comes to what we are trying to express, all because it's easy, or it doesn't cause, in our minds, it doesn't cause harm. Oh, what's a little harm in, trying to speak like this, trying to code switch? There's nothing wrong with code switching. I think code switching is something that It's an art, actually. It's something more people should be proud of. But don't code switch to the detriment of yourself. Don't code switch to the detriment of who you are at your core, who you truly present to the world. Don't feel like you have to present your representative all the time. You don't. You can be your true self. And that starts with letting go of the expectation of what you think other people want you to be, and how you think other people want you to sound, how you think they want you to sound. I've sounded like this my whole life. I've had this voice at this cadence since I was a kid. And I have loved women with deep, raspy voices my whole life. And I think there's something very beautiful about that. But I was also a kid sounding like this, so it wasn't very fun to have this voice, but I've come to accept it. I've come to really enjoy how I sound. Now I have a lisp. I tend to talk really fast when I'm really excited about something, but I haven't allowed that to become something that is a negative. It's taken time, and it's also taken practice. I am intentionally slowing myself down, and that's something that I've had to practice, especially being in this type of work, also being a independent producer and a podcaster, and having to be on a mic has taught me how to speak differently. But I will also speak how I normally speak when I feel like it. And I'm not going to allow someone to bring me any sort of let down, any sort of put down, any sort of negative energy because they deem how I speak to be unbecoming. I speak like this. This is how I speak. And I have my southern drawl. I have my my hood adjacent dialect because I did grow up in the hood. And I'm able to code switch between those two, and I am no longer allowing someone to tell me that that's how I have to be. I'm not allowing someone to convince me that silencing me is the only way to get me to really be impactful. The whole, kids are to be seen and not heard. Women cannot speak about certain things in certain spaces, and women, get back in the kitchen, and you can't share this, and you can't talk about this. Ooh, this makes me uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, PC culture, all these sort of things. We aren't allowing people to continue to break us down in a way and tell us that any sort of expression that comes from our lips, that comes from our throat, that comes from our expression is null and void because it makes someone else uncomfortable. We aren't allowing that anymore. It's especially not in 2018 going into 2019. We aren't allowing that anymore. We aren't allowing someone to come around and go, well, you can't say that because it makes me feel a sort of way. And we also are not allowing our egos to get in the way of what we are attempting to accomplish, because we've told ourselves that we have all the answers. We are the subject matter expert in everything. You are the subject matter expert in you, and that's it. Yes, you may have knowledge in certain things. You may have wisdom in others, but you are not the subject matter expert in every single thing you come across. You are the only subject matter expert in you, and everything else is a bonus. Everything else is, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you knew that. That's incredible. That's great. Don't allow that to become an ego boost to you. Use that, allow it to help you to grow, and you continue growing. Don't feel like you have to be the loudest person in the room because someone came along and said, you know what, you're really smart and I really enjoy talking and speaking to you, and you just go, ha, I have to tell everybody all the things. Like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. So find out where that ego comes in when it comes to having to project and be the loudest and show off and do this and do that. Ask yourself where that comes from. Does it come from because somebody years ago tried to silence you, and your way of dealing with that was to get as loud as you possibly could? And in doing that, you went from one extreme to the other, and you haven't found that balance yet. Is it because someone said that you have to be that way, otherwise nobody's ever going to respect you, no one's ever going to listen to you unless you're kicking up as much dust as you can? Has someone come along and said, because you're a minority, or you're not a cishet white male, you have to be a certain way, you have to speak a certain thing, and you have to just everything, and it makes you uncomfortable. It's not something that you want to do, it's not something that you want to continue, but this is the only way to be, this is the only way to handle it. Are those the things that are causing you to continue to knock over everyone else in the room and to step over everyone else's accomplishments, to be like, ha, I am here? If that's what's happening, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why this is something that you've allowed to continue, and then ask yourself, are you ready to do something different? Ask yourself if that's something that you're ready to sever ties with, because you want to grow in a different direction. You want to go in a different direction. You want to be able to speak, to be in a room and speak to vastly different people with vastly different experiences, and not be in the room waiting to have your say and just listening so you can speak, and actually have the ability to have those conversations and to be in those rooms, not to hurry up and try to say something, but to be in there to actually actively listen. Are you ready to do that? Is that something you're pulling in? Is that something that you know is attaching itself to you to get your attention, to get you to stop like playing the center of attention game? Because I feel like a lot of us are in that space. A lot of us are in the space of, I really want to get off this pedestal. I really want to stop being the one that feels like they have to know everything at all times, otherwise my existence is futile. I really want to get off of that. Let it go. I'm concentrating on the throat specifically because that light came from here as I was initiating our Reiki. Ask yourself what that means and how you're dealing with it. And it's like really right here. Ask yourself what you're not allowing yourself to say. A lot of our healing comes from acknowledging the things that have happened to us out loud. And that can be scary. That can cause us to shut down. That can cause us to stop talking. And because we're on this road to healing, because we're coming into our evolved, healed, well, continuously healing selves, it can be difficult and scary to admit a lot of what we've gone through out loud, because we believe that we have control over it if it's on the inside still. We can still handle it we can continue to go through the motions and deal with it. When actuality is we lose more and more control the longer it stays in us. I am a novice tarot reader. I say novice because I've only been reading tarot for about 2 or so years. It's something that I've been intrigued by since I was a kid, but due to my background in the theology in which I was raised under, I didn't allow myself to venture out into that space until about 3 years ago. And but I've always felt a calling to it. So when I first started this journey, the thing that capped off my journey was the tower and that implosion. And imploding, to me, I think is a lot more destructive than exploding. And when we try to hold in our expression and not say those things out loud, because we're telling ourselves that we give it more power if we say it out loud, you see those things start to spurt out. You know, there's a lightning strike here, here's a little crack there in the foundation, here's this over here, this over here. We're like, oh, I'll get to it, I'll patch this up, I'll shut that window so I don't have to worry about seeing the lightning strikes anymore. And then next thing you know, you've imploded because you didn't deal with what was clearly happening on the inside. If you're not familiar with the Tower card in tarot, my way of depicting the Tower card is Tower is on a hill. Nothing can get to it. There's no way that any outside force can get to it to destroy it. The only way the tower is destroyed is from within. And when you pull that Tower card in any reading, for the most part, majority of the time, that is the universe giving you a sign of either you fix this or we will fix it for you. And you do not want us to fix it for you. So it's always a sign of, what am I hiding from? What am I not allowing myself to deal with? And when it comes to our throat chakra, what am I not allowing myself to express, even if it's just to me in my room by myself? I've found so much healing in saying the things that I need to say out loud to myself alone. Because now it's no longer in my belly, it's no longer in my throat, and I can look at it. I can literally watch these words fly from my lips, and now I have more control of it when it's outside of me than when it's inside of me. It's not affecting me as much when it's on the outside. It has light now. I can see it, I can witness it, I can do whatever I need to do with it. And that helps when it comes to those of us that struggle with our throat chakras, because now we've given ourselves our voice back. Now we've allowed ourselves to speak, even if it's alone, even if it's just you recording yourself on your phone, even if it's you in the shower having these arguments about the thing that happened to you 5 years ago and you haven't allowed yourself to deal with it. You're getting it out of your system. I'm an avid writer. I've been writing since I was 7 years old. I'm 31. Writing is my main love language, but sometimes writing can unclog some things, but until I say those things out loud, I'm kind of shaking the table a little bit and not really doing a lot. Until I say them things out loud, the floodgates open. Now I have my power back because I've said it out loud. So continue strumming that throat chakra of yours and asking yourself what energies need to be cut, why they need to be cut, and how to best go about cutting those energies. Because this is how majority of us communicate. Not all of us. This is how a good chunk of us communicate. And getting that in order will help to realign any other chakra that is out of order. And starting with throat, starting with expression, starting with communication. Especially those of us, I am ruled by Mercury, I'm a Virgo. So communication whenever we're in retrograde can, so it can, depending on where that lands in the time of the year, it can make my communication vastly better, or it can make it suck. So because communication is so very important to me, I need to be in a healthy relationship with how I communicate. When I feel myself shutting down and allowing myself to be silenced, my body tells me, my throat tells me, I get a headache, all these things happen. And instead of running from that, instead of telling myself, oh, I'm gonna be okay, I'll just write about it, blah, 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 I speak it now. And that's taken years to learn. That's taken a long time to communicate. But I speak it now. We go through it now. And we cut that which is negative. We transmute this energy so that it's no longer holding us back. We aren't fighting to be heard anymore. We just are. And what we have to say is listened to and acknowledged, even if it's just by ourselves in the very beginning of it. And so we cut anything and everything that tells us we're not able to say those things. We're not able to be those things. We're not able to show and to speak and be allowed that energy and that expression and that communication. We yank that out and we cut it. I'm being like really aggressive. You see there's no music on this one. You see there's no very chill ASMR on this one. I'm being aggressive with cutting the cords of communication because so many of us have been put in bondage, either self-inflicted or not. And we have so much to say that we aren't allowing ourselves to say. And I am cutting those cords of allowing ourselves to be silenced. We're not doing that anymore. So, not so continue cutting those cords. Don't necessarily need a kai knife. If you have a kai knife, great, it's a bonus. But use the energy that you have as a light worker, as an energy worker, as a healer. Even if the only person that you've ever healed is you, that's enough people. Use the energy that you have to heal yourself, to heal that space of communication for you.